Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Write for Your Life. I'm Caleb,
And I'm Timothy.
and obviously you can't see us because this is an audio
Well,
format.
one person can see us.
One person can see us. We have the windows closed, and I say we have the windows closed because we're in person.
Oh, yeah. Episode 10. And we definitely planned it like this. It was 100% intentional from the very beginning.
From the very beginning.
Not just incredible happenstance that you happen to be in town this is the 4th of July weekend, so we're recording this a lot earlier than it's going to come out. It just worked out absolutely perfectly that we had something special planned for episode 10, and then we were going through the schedule and realized, oh, we can just record this together, which is very exciting. So we're gonna take some photos. I don't know when we'll post them, but we've got two mics in the same room, and that means Caleb doesn't have to match up audio, which is very exciting.
I'm really hoping this saves me about an hour and a half.
No, we just have to make enough mistakes that it'll still take you just as long to edit.
I don't mind getting my reps in as long as it means that it's productive and not me sitting there editing out silence because Audacity has decided that it can't recognize silence anymore.
Yeah, that's whatever. Wild.
It's okay. We'll figure it out. And by we, I mean Audacity. I can't figure it out. I'm not their software guy. I'm someone else's software guy.
Yeah. And you don't even write the software.
No, I don't. I just tell everyone that they make a lot of mistakes. So we'll do another live recording this week because, I mean, we're here in person.
Yeah.
Why not do a live recording? But before the live recording, I have something for you.
This is, okay, so he is searching around in his suitcase now.
So we're doing Tim's favorite piece for episode 10. We did plan that. We wanted to do Tim's favorite piece for episode 10.
Yeah.
And Tim has told me if you were to ever get one of my writings framed, it would be this one.
Dude, no way.
So, I had
my
wife Jenny. Thank you, Jenny. She has very good handwriting. And so I had her write it out in very nice cursive. She took the paper and crumpled it up so it looks kind of old. She put a wax seal on it as well, and I signed it in the bottom right.
This is incredible.
Tim now has his favorite piece framed.
Thank you, man. That's wow.
Absolutely.
This is really special.
Of course, I had to bring a gift. I had to.
Well, I have to decide where I want to put this because it's got to be a prominent place. I want to see it.
However much stuff you think Tim has on his walls, he has way more stuff on his walls than you would think that he does.
This is so cool. She did such a good job with this.
She did amazing. I mean, honestly, my handwriting is garbage. My handwriting is so bad. But
your signature looks good.
My signature does look good. It almost looks like it could be good enough to have been part of the rest of it. Almost.
I like how that's going to be a G, but it just looks like a balloon animal.
It does kind of look like a balloon animal. My G's sort of do. I blame my mom. She has a very distinctive way that she writes her G's, and I sort of, just seeing her sign so many things, I sort of taken after that.
Yeah. Thank you, man. This is absolutely incredible.
Of course, I wanted to come bearing gifts.
Well, for now, I'm going to put this right there so I can look at it. And then I'll figure out, I mean, it might just stay there. I don't know. But I'll put it somewhere where I can actually see it as opposed to that stuff that is just behind my monitors.
Yeah, hang it wherever you like. But when you said that and I got the idea, I messaged your wife and I was like...
She only told me she was hiding one secret from me. This is crazy.
I messaged her and I was like, Tim said he might want to print this one out. Do not let him under any circumstances print this out. And even if he does print it out, I don't know, like, throw it away or just make sure he doesn't frame it. So.
That is really special. Thank you.
Yes, it is. A way to celebrate episode 10 and a way to thank you for letting me crash in your house while we're in Nashville.
This has been a fantastic weekend. And I'm really excited to be able to record in person. And it feels weird starting the episode and not like catching up on our weeks because I kind of know what your week has been like already because we've done it together and that's really cool.
Yeah, I've been here for a few days now, so I think you want to go ahead and dive right in.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it diving right in because we've done so much beforehand, but yeah, let's dive in.
All right. Jazz and Orchestra. He was like jazz, free flowing. Every step seemed to connect, but you never really knew what was next. Fast and brilliant, swept up like the wind. Any mess could be addressed when met by his charm, raucous and rowdy, but never out of control. He himself was the freest of souls. She was like Orchestra. Everything was in its right place at its right time. Everything was practiced and measured. 1,000 sounds that all rang out in perfect accord. A beautiful intro. A heightened, furious crescendo. A crash down to the soul. A rise up to the heavens. Balanced on a knife's edge. Only able to move when she says. He was like jazz. She was like orchestra. And they both loved to make music.
I got goosebumps.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm gonna get better at reading these. I'm still like figuring out voice and everything else.
This is very good still.
Thank you. So, what did you think?
I mean, the first thing is obviously, I got goosebumps because I get goosebumps every time I read this. And hearing you read it was even better. There is so much that I love about this piece. And there's so much that I could talk. I mean, I could probably talk about this for just the entire episode.
Mm-hmm.
But just to start out, the difference between you reading it and then me reading it, honestly, there wasn't really much. And I think that's partially why I love this piece so much because you know exactly what it is. You know exactly how it sounds. And I think that's just mainly because you know exactly what this poem sounds like when you look at it and when you read it. And that's another thing is, obviously the first section, he was like jazz. And then the second section, she was like orchestra. And just even visually, you can tell that they're completely different stanzas. Because the first one, there's not really much of a pattern either at the beginning of each line or at the end. There's a bit of a rhyming scheme, but there's stuff inside the lines. Any mess could be addressed. That's inside a line. Mm-hmm. And you've got kind of that fluctuating rhythm. But then you read the second one, and it's very structured comparatively. And you have, the 5 lines in a row that are, a, adjective, etc. And it's just the form of the poem fits the meaning of the poem so well. And then you bring it back together at the end, and then you hit me with that last line, and I almost cried the first time I read it because it was so freaking good. It's beautiful. Just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, to prepare for this one specifically, because I feel like everyone kind of understands what orchestra sounds like, because it's classical music, so it's anything that you can think with Beethoven or Mozart or any of that other kind of stuff. But for jazz specifically, if you're not exposed to it a lot, it can be hard to sort of mentally imagine what it's like. And I like jazz because it is more free-flowing. There's a lot more... To me, more is happening with less. And I listened to a few hours of jazz before I wrote this piece because I knew I wanted to write it. So after having listened to it for a few hours, I was like, okay, this sort of gives me a good place to start with this because I wanted to be respectful of the music genres I was discussing. While I do have a preference for one over the other, I am much more like jazz. I wanted to make sure that both were easily recognizable, and it's sort of a happy accident that they look the way that they do. I want it to sound the way that it does, but the fact that it looks the way that it does on the page And even looking at the written out version, where you can see, even I think it's better broken up here
Mm-hmm.
in the handwritten piece than it is on the online written piece, because of the way that the lines are written up. You sort of have like a 2, a 3, a 4, a 2, and a 2.
Mm-hmm.
But in the second half, in her half, it sort of is broken up into larger chunks
Yeah. And the
where
second stanza almost looks like a bulleted points in
it
a way.
does, because it sort of looks like title of the list, bullet, 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 bullet,
Yeah.
and it's broken up more distinctly. So when we post it on socials, you'll be able to see it. But I would also encourage you to go look at the Substack version of this, because I think it's a good example of what we talk about a lot creatively, where it's the same piece, but how you're imagining it written out with me reading it versus how it is on the page where it was originally published versus looking at the written version, it produces a different feeling and understanding of it, just in the different ways that it's presented, even though the subject matter is literally the exact same.
Yeah. And it's one of those interesting things where, a book does not have this quite as much as a poem will. But a poem is not a single sense medium.
Mm-hmm.
It's a multiple sense medium. You're probably not going to get smell when you read a poem. You're probably not going to get taste when you read a poem. But especially if you read it out loud to yourself, you're going to have sight, you're going to have sound. If you're holding it, you're going to have touch. And all of that matters because reading this framed version, or especially if I took it out and read the unframed version, that is a feast for the senses. And everything contributes to the experience of the poem. Because if I was just listening to it, and I mean, obviously, we're kind of, we're giving the readers a disadvantage here because they are just listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said readers again, my goodness. But
It's
they're
fine.
reading it. The listeners are listening to it. But if you have all of that together, you do get more out of the poem. I mean, seeing it written out like this in beautiful lettering on, really cool paper in a frame, it gives me more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really, really neat because a lot of times, especially when we're writing books, you only think about how do these words sound in your head. Because 90% of the time, people are going to be reading them in their head to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't think about how does this look on the page? Or how does this sound when you do read it out loud? Because those can be two very different things. And, obviously, again, it's more important with poetry and music and things like that than I think it is with books. But it's still an interesting thing to consider because when I'm writing my book, a lot of the way I make decisions on paragraph breaks is visual. It's not how it flows in my head. It's okay, does this look like I want it to on the page? Because your eye skims to the next paragraph. Is it big or is it small? What are you expecting here? Are you expecting something a little more, dense? Or, oh, you see a bunch of tiny little sentences separated, a dialogue is coming up, and you can kind of prepare yourself for
Mm-hmm.
that. And it's something that I haven't thought about a ton until very recently, and now I've thought about it a lot. And this is just such a great example of how writing is a visual medium as well as a word medium. I don't know what the technical way to say that is.
I was gonna say like textile or tactile, but both those are wrong. Because
Well,
textile is cloth and tactile is just anything that you can feel. So I don't know what the specific medium for writing. I feel like it starts with a T. Oh well.
yeah,
Somebody will put in the comments below if you know what that word is.
got to get that engagement up.
Somehow. Yeah. It's something that you learn more and more, because I always think about visually stunning. I think of A Series of Unfortunate Events,
Yes.
where there's one book in particular where the house is about to like tip over off a cliff into the sea, the bay, and they're hanging onto a toaster that's like plugged into the wall. And the author takes a little break here, and either there's a bracket or a parentheses, and it was like, under no circumstances should you ever and then you flip the page, and it is 2 full open book pages of the word ever. So it's like, don't ever, 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 like just 2 full pages. And you flip it over, it says ever, just one more ever on the next page. Mix electric things with water. And it's so visually stunning because the rest of the book feels like a book, but it's kind of jarring to be like, oh yeah, this is a real world thing that like shouldn't happen. But it's, again, just like a visually stunning thing because you flip it over and you're like, this is the same word repeated who knows how many times across these 2 pages. And it's something that like you remember. Like I remember it very distinctly. I don't remember much of the 6 books that I read of that series. It just got too sad. It got too sad.
Yeah.
But I do remember that. And
Yeah.
using something that is as visually distinct as that can help you remember it. And also remembers how strongly to never mix electrical things with water.
Yeah, you'll never forget that lesson.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think about it every time that I'm near an outlet and I'm drinking water. I just think about it. So.
Yeah. Or it's like I don't remember which Unfortunate Events book it's in, but where he's talking about, well, I guess, spoilers if you don't want to be spoiled with this part, because it is a little bit fun to experience it your first time, but where he talks about experiencing deja vu, and then you flip the page, and it's the exact same words over again.
Oh gosh, I don't remember that.
It's again very, it's like you experience that in such an important way when you're reading the book, because it is very trippy. It's like, is this a misprint? What's happening here?
Yeah, so you can learn a lot even in a written medium by playing with visuals and expectations.
Yeah. So to get into the intent and inspiration behind this piece, I guess, why did you want to write this?
So there's sort of 2 ways that you could go here. And I think the obvious way is to say that this is written because it's a sort of a comparison between like me and my wife and how I am and how she is. And the important thing is that we like to make music together. And that would be a very beautiful explanation, and is the explanation that appears on the page when you read it. But that's not actually why I wrote it. I wrote it because of food.
Ooh.
I wrote it because of cooking and baking, because I started saying the term, cooking's like jazz and baking's like orchestra.
That's beautiful.
And I cannot bake to save my life. I could if I tried really, really hard, but I don't like following a recipe. I don't like measuring things out. I don't like doing that. I prefer to just throw my spices in as I'm going, sort of vibe checking everything. If I make a mistake with one thing, I can correct it with another thing, and no one will even know that it ever happened. Right? You can have a bunch of, different, very strong flavors together in one dish, but as long as you balance them out well, like in jazz, you can have several very strong, brassy instruments all there together, but as long as they're sort of either loud together or there's something else going on to sort of take the attention away from the brass, something like drums, or you can very explicitly make one thing amped up, like a saxophone or a trumpet or something like that, to have it be singled out. But I can do that just off of ear. And it takes several trials and attempts, like practicing together, to sort of get that flavor and that feeling the way that you want. Because sort of the way that I cook is I have a taste in my head, I have a feeling I want to convey, and then I just start. And I can sort of throw it together, and it eventually will create the thing that I'm imagining. Versus, my wife loves to bake. And so she starts out with, here's all of the things that you need. And here's all the things that you need. Here's what the end product is. Here's what the end flavor is going to be. You know everything beforehand. And it's just executing on all of those steps well in order to get the end product that you desire. And so, like an orchestra where you need all of these separate pieces to come together, because baking has so many ingredients, so many of them, that's good to get everything out beforehand, because you may need to soften your butter. You may need to mix other things. You need your eggs to come up to room temperature. So there's a lot more preparation that goes into the execution versus executing as you're going, executing as you're thinking. I also understand that like jazz is a beautiful medium that people practice really hard, and there are things that are like written out and structured and other things like that. And I also understand that sometimes in orchestra people go off script because they know music really well and they understand those are separate things that are not a part of this conversation. But that's typically what you think of when you think of these two different music mediums. So, food is why I wrote this.
You have made me love it more, and I didn't think that was possible. Because I mean, obviously, you know, me and my wife's relationship, it's exactly the same in this area.
Mm-hmm.
Because I, just like Caleb, I cannot bake to save my life. Every time I have tried to bake something beyond the childhood bread recipe that my mother gave to me, I fail. Every single time. I
Mm-hmm.
will follow the recipe to the T. I will do everything exactly right. I will, you know, measure, I'll temp, I'll do all of the things, and it just doesn't work. And then the crazy thing is Key has gotten to the point she doesn't have to use a recipe because she just knows it so well.
Mm-hmm.
But it is even apart from our methods of doing it, because we're both starting. Well, she's very good at kind of improvising baking, depending on the recipe. I'm very good at improvising cooking, depending on the recipe. And even if you take that and apply it to this, it still completely works because baking has to be structured. You have to follow certain things. It's science versus art in a lot
Mm-hmm.
of ways.
It is.
And baking is obviously art, but baking, when you break it down to its core, it is science. Even if you're making the simplest 3 ingredient recipe, heck, a 2 ingredient recipe, if you're making like a non oil sourdough or something, it's flour and water, maybe a little bit of salt.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is meticulous. And
Yep.
just like an orchestra, where you have all these things working together, or even if you're playing like if it's just a 4 part string quartet and you're doing like a chamber thing, everything has to be perfectly in line because every note has got to hit with every single instrument, or else it will sound terrible and it'll just completely fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
And then you move over to jazz, and jazz takes a ton of practice.
So much
And
practice.
I think both of us, we've been practicing cooking our entire lives essentially.
Yes.
But it is not a science. It has never been a science and it never will be. You just do stuff and you
Mm-hmm.
get the feel for it. And everything is just vibes and experience. And oh, I kind of know this. And there's some rules, obviously. You got to get your meat to the right temp, etc., blah, 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 all that
Yep.
stuff. And that is true in jazz. If you completely abandon the framework of music, it's not jazz anymore.
Yep.
But within that framework of, in cooking, it's food safety. And with jazz, it's just the basic mechanics of music. Within that, you get so much freedom to do whatever you want, and it's all about communicating with the other instruments, with the other players. And in cooking, it's all the spices communicating together and your methods of cooking communicating together.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be perfect. I have never made a perfect recipe. I mean,
No.
the biryani that I made on Saturday, Saturday.
Saturday.
The biryani that I made on Saturday, I measured the spices, and I'm doing air quotes. I measured the spices. I did not measure the spices. I was like, oh, I like this one more. I'm going to put more of it in there. I
Mm-hmm.
know this one's really strong. I'm not going to put as much in there. I have not measured a spice for a recipe in longer than I can remember.
Yep.
And that's, I, for a more reference, Key and I are both musicians. And even though neither of us are, I'm not a jazz musician and she's not like a classical musician,
Mm-hmm.
it still fits the way we work because I have always been an improviser and I play by ear, which is why, when I was playing worship music in RUF, it was so easy because you give me, I don't even need a course sheet at this point. You just throw me in there and you're like, hey, we're
Mm-hmm.
going for this feel. Boom, I got you. I don't
Yep.
have to practice. I'm in there, I'm hearing it, I'm feeling it, and I just play. Key cannot do that. But her strength is being able to learn music so well. She can play very good fingerstyle. She can learn all of this stuff, and she's very good at reading music, memorizing it, playing it very well. And that is something that I am terrible at. I have never been good at reading sheet music. I have never been good at memorizing a piece or going through a lot of that discipline that you have to have. And yet I have a different kind of discipline. And so it
Mhm.
goes back to the very end. It, the path you get there does not mean that your end is different.
Mhm.
It's like we have completely separate styles in a lot of things in life. And yet because our goals are so completely aligned, our priorities are completely aligned, it makes it even more beautiful. Because then, we complement each other. She's good at things I'm bad at, and vice versa. And on Saturday, with the meal, we had both biryani, which I made, and we had naan that Key made.
Mhm.
And the two of those things together is even better than either one by itself. And you can just keep unpacking this, and it just keeps being true. It's really incredible.
Yeah, and the most important line in the entire piece is, and they both loved to make music.
Yeah.
And that's something that you find with not just in romantic partners, even though this does feel very romantic partner adjacent, but it also is important with friendships, and it's also
Mm-hmm.
important with your job, and it's also important with other hobbies that you have in general, right? Is the fact that you both love the same thing.
Yeah.
And like you said, it doesn't really matter how you get there, but it does matter that you're aligned in the things that you love and the things that you're trying to accomplish. And this one's so funny because I really didn't think that much about this piece when I made it.
Hmm.
There's some pieces that I like really think about and fret about, but this one I wrote it and I was like, I don't know if this one's particularly good. I think it's fine. I don't think it's one of my strongest ones that I've written. I think it's cool. And so I sent it out. And I think that's part of the beauty of this is I get to learn that other people love things more than I did or do. Because I write so many things that I know that not everything I write's going to be good. Not everything I write's going to be the best thing I've ever written. Some things that I write are going to be okay and they're going to be fine. And some things are going to be a little too on the nose. And some things are going to be not on the nose enough. So I like hearing how much that it means. Before we talked about it, I didn't think about how the words on the page were structured and all this other kind of stuff. But the fact that someone can take meaning out of a work that is in there, like, as you're saying this, I'm like, yeah, I agree. It does look like that. It does do this. I didn't think about it like that when I was writing it, but I can pull additional meaning out of something I've written based upon what someone else takes out of what I've done.
Yeah.
And you'll find that with lots of things that you create. And I think also of the memories that you have with people. Other people will get different things out of the same event in the same memory than you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why it's important to have conversations with people about things that have already happened. Even though you were both there and you both experienced the same thing, you might not have had the same experience.
Yeah. To kind of go off of that, a thing that I thought of while you were talking was you were talking about, how much it means when you hear what other people think of your piece and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
you're writing, and it's really special, and you're also really proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that brought to mind something that I have thought about a lot because it's kind of the how you deal with ego versus being proud of something in creative works.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I've had to think about a lot, not because I'm really good at anything, but because I, especially in the past, have struggled a lot with ego. What I learned, especially from talking to my wife and how she views these things, the line between a good artist and a prideful artist is how they talk about what they've made.
Mm.
And the difference between what we're doing right here and what someone who is a prideful person is doing is what we're talking about, because we're talking about the meaning, the story, all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And you're very proud of what you've done. And
Yeah.
I'm very proud of what you've done. And I want people to know that this is incredible. And I want, to tell everybody, oh, you should go read this. It's really, really
Mm-hmm.
good. And I would want to do that with something I wrote if I was proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference is when someone asks you, oh, tell me about this or something like that, the wrong way to go about it is, oh, I made this, I'm really proud of it. Look at all of these techniques. Look at all of this, look at how well I did that. Look at how well I
Mm-hmm.
did this. That's not the right thing to do. The right thing to do is talk about the story of it and what
Mm-hmm.
it means to you and how it makes you feel and why you did it. And obviously, when we're talking about that, the form of the piece came up, the form of the writing came up, and all of this stuff. The approach is so different because the whole point of art, it's not to show off what you can do. The point of art is to share feelings and experiences and emotions. And so if you talk about it in that way, that is what helps people connect to what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another beautiful thing about what we're doing here is I have connected to writings that you've done way more after talking to you about them. Because there's some stuff that you said, oh, we should talk about this on the podcast. And I'm like, okay, sure. It's definitely not one of my favorites, but let's go over it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talk about it for 20, 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's so good. And I love that. I love that that is how art works.
Yeah, because I often find it's the same way with people. Just having conversations with people, even if
Mm-hmm.
it's someone that you may not particularly like, having a 20 or 30-minute conversation with them will unveil so much about them.
Yeah.
And whether that will reinforce your opinion that maybe something isn't very good, or maybe it changes your opinion and you think, oh, maybe this person is cool or good, or maybe this piece is good. Because one of the reasons why I want to talk about this was to unpack it. The second reason why, this is where sort of a little bit of the humility comes in, is I am so afraid of copyright law. I'm so afraid of copyright
That's
law.
fair.
And I'm like, I don't have to worry about getting sued from anyone if we're looking at my own stuff, because the only one I would sue is me. And I don't particularly feel like doing that to me.
You don't have the money to sue yourself.
No, I don't have the money to sue myself. I'd lose. So that's particularly why we talk about my pieces. I don't want it to come from a prideful place. I do want to talk about all of the different layers and intricacies in it, not particularly because I'm brilliant, but sort of going all the way back to episode 1 about being nobodies from nowhere. It's because we're not.
Yeah.
It's not because of what we are, it's because of what we aren't. As an encouragement to everyone who believes that also that they aren't, to do and be and create.
Yeah.
And to discuss art, because I don't believe that we talk about art and interpreting art as seriously as we talk about sciences.
Mm-hmm.
And that leaves people with this gap of not being able to analyze the story being told to you. And so I want to help educate on what can be in these pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is particularly good with that because the surface meaning comes across as this is a story about two people who love each other and they're very different, but they have this one thing in common that sort of holds that love together. And that is a very true interpretation of this piece, but it is not, quote unquote, the author's original intent. The author's original intent is about food, which you would never understand from this.
Yeah.
So, in order to fully get what Tim describes as, meanings of this piece, sometimes you have to dig into the author's life and the author's interests and make some connections that may seem a little more nebulous in order to be able to connect all of the pieces together.
Mm-hmm. And that becomes particularly important when you're reading things that are a lot longer and a lot more complex.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are a lot of stories, a lot of books, a lot of art that is pushing a story. And it may not be, most of it isn't, oh, I want to write about, this particular thing that's happening in the culture, etc., etc. But anybody who ever makes art is coming from a background and a worldview, and that background and worldview will affect their art.
Mm-hmm.
And to be aware of that is A, to be able to appreciate it, and B, be able to separate yourself from it. Because if you're not aware of where that person is coming from, then you have no clue how your thoughts are being influenced by that.
Mm-hmm.
And, that can sound kind of conspiracy theory to some people, but it's not like, oh, you're being brainwashed or anything. It's just, this is what this piece is saying underneath the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why I love reading books from authors from different countries, authors from different religions, authors from different philosophical worldviews, because you get to see how a formalized system, essentially, like a religion or something like that, you get to see how that reveals itself in practice,
Mm-hmm.
which is not something you get to see very often unless you're really close to somebody who
Yep.
has a different worldview or religion or something from you. And so you kind of get that in a book because you get to see, okay, here's how a person applied these.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't the logical, correct, natural conclusion, take it to, its logical furthest conclusion. It's not all of that you would get in a philosophy class. This is a real, messy person actually applying this stuff. And obviously, in something simple like jazz and orchestra, something shorter, it's not, you were not getting into much of, what's your philosophy of life or
Mm-hmm.
what do you believe about, love or things like that. And we get some of that in here, but it's not a lot. But when you get into longer stuff, especially stories, you get a lot of that. I
Yeah.
mean, you can read, like if you read Dostoevsky,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yep.
you read Brandon Sanderson,
Mm-hmm.
and then you read some of the early American authors. I mean, you just read 3 books and you get 3 such different pictures of the world and different pictures of what is valuable in life. And all of them are good. If any of the books that I've listed, those are all good books. And you just get to see what the author is saying and what the author is coming from. It's not a judgment of is this thing good or bad. It's just, let me learn about this.
There's a quote from somebody that I can't remember who says, "A person who has not read has lived one life, but of someone who has read has lived 1,000 lives."
Yeah.
Because of all of those things that you mentioned, of those different perspectives, I think the clearest example to me is Animal Farm.
Oh,
You can get a lot out of Animal Farm if you just read it and you know nothing about communist Russia.
Yeah.
But if you understand the historical context for which it was written, as well as the leaders at the time, and just generic historical background about communist Russia, you will understand way more about the book.
Mm-hmm.
And way more about its purpose and intent and all of those other deeper meanings behind it. If you just do a little bit of digging, you don't have to do a lot of digging because it's a very, very well documented historical event.
Yeah.
And so when you're reading a piece, and I often find that when something doesn't quite land, digging into it and being like, I think there's something here, but it's not quite connecting with me. By doing that, you will then understand it more and connect more. This often happens when my wife and I get out of movies and we talk about it. I'm like, this didn't really land with me. I didn't really think that this made much sense. And she's like, well, actually, this makes a lot of sense to me. I think it was because of this and this and this and this. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about it like that. That makes so much more sense.
Yeah. And then you've lived another life at that point.
Right.
You've seen it through somebody else's eyes.
Yep.
Yeah.
We could bloviate feels like a negative thing.
Expound?
Yes, expound. We could expound upon this for much, much longer.
Yeah.
We won't, because I want everyone else to expound upon it in the comments or with us. Or maybe you could just say LOL, not good, L, and then move on, which is fine. It's a completely fine take to have. But let's move on to our next segment. You've been very excited to tell me about what has been inspiring you. You've told me twice since we've been here, like, I want to talk to you about this thing, but I want to wait till we're on the podcast to talk about it. So now's your chance.
Yep. Okay. So, all right. So episode 10, I wanted to do something that felt a little more momentous.
Okay.
And something that has, A, influenced me a lot, B, feels unusual, and C, I wanted to see your face when I told you.
Okay.
So, you know that I like Indian movies a lot.
You love Indian movies.
they're fascinating. I mean, going back to what we were saying earlier, you get to see stuff from such a different worldview and perspective. Not only, Indian culture, Indian religions, but also their method of storytelling. It's completely different.
Bollywood is such a different thing.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. It is wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and obviously Tollywood, Collywood. I mean, you've got so many. I
Mhm.
cannot list them all, and they're all different.
Yep.
And I can at this point see a movie and know generally what region of India it came from, and then that gives me context as to what to expect and how to interpret what's happening. And I've been watching Bollywood movies pretty consistently. There was one that I saw a long time ago when I was first starting my kind of foray into Indian movies,
Uh-huh.
and it was called Ega. And if anybody knows about Ega, you're probably laughing because it's awesome. I had completely forgotten about it, and
Uh-huh.
then I got the most excellent YouTube feed refresh pull that I have gotten
Oh
in a
my
long
gosh.
time.
I love when that happens.
And there's this channel called Accented Cinema. He's very good. I like the way he talks about movies. And it was talking about Iga.
Mhm.
And I cannot remember let me just pull up. Hang on. This makes for great radio. Accented
Keyboard sounds louder in person.
Iga. That's the name of the video. So it says Iga, and then it has a pipe, and then it says quality blank post from the director of RRR. And then the thumbnail says that time I got reincarnated as a housefly and waged war against a billionaire. And all of that happens.
That is incredible.
So go watch the video because he does a much better job of explaining it, especially if you don't care about spoilers. He talks about the whole plot.
Uh-huh.
But it's a fairly long movie. I watched it on an airplane. And for context, the director of RRR that title speaks of, S.S. Rajamouli, he has made some of the best movies to ever come out of India. He's made RRR, he made Bahubali. I don't remember too many of the others because I haven't done a ton of research into him, but he is probably one of the best directors of recent times, especially, and potentially of all time, to make those epic Indian movies.
Even if you don't know those names that he's saying, RRR is on Netflix, or it was on Netflix.
Bahubali is too, yeah.
And just frankly, if you watch the Netflix intro, you get such a good like feeling for what the movie is, and like, because like I haven't seen that movie, but it's such a distinct style that I am literally imagining the Netflix title card, and I believe it's him swinging on a vine and then running really, really fast.
Yeah.
Like, he looks like he's running incredibly fast.
He's outrunning a tiger, is what's happening.
Yeah, so you understand so much about it just from a very brief clip, which to me is always a good indicator of distinct style.
It's great you bring that up because that is exactly what I was going to talk about. So he goes into it in the movie, in the YouTube video. For context and spoilers, if you don't want anything, just skip ahead a few minutes. The plot of this movie is there is this young man, and he's in love with this girl, and he's trying to woo her. And if you haven't read anything about the movie, you don't know this is coming. So he's in love with this girl, and then there's like this evil rich businessman guy. He's super egotistical, all of this stuff. He's exactly the kind of villain that you would expect. And he's also in love with this girl, but not actually in love with her. She's like his next conquest, essentially. It's very slimy. And not even halfway through the movie, the main character dies. The evil villain steps on his neck with his foot and kills him. And then you get the intermission.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
And then the next scene is late 90s, early 2000s polygon CGI of a housefly that is trying to survive just like a normal life scenario. There's this flood of water that comes, he has to fly away from it, he gets stuck on a tennis ball for a little bit, all of this stuff happens. And then suddenly he's in this glass of water. Basically, it's the end of like this Rube Goldberg machine of him escaping things. And someone picks up the glass of water and drinks. It's the guy who killed him. And this is the main character, reincarnated as a fly. And the second half of the movie is this housefly ruining this man's life. He drives him insane. He causes a car accident. He makes him fall off of a roof. The man is like in a full body cast for part of the movie because he's been so beat up. He has shot so many holes in his house because he's trying to kill this housefly. The final confrontation is everybody's in the mansion, and the villain catches the housefly and he's cutting off his wings and he's like laughing maniacally and monologuing. And then the housefly, and this was set up earlier in the movie, the housefly picks up a cannonball, like a tiny little cannonball, puts it in this ornamental desk cannon, and lights himself on fire and flies into the cannon, which then shoots the cannonball and kills the villain.
This is the this sounds like the I have to watch this movie now. I do not have a choice. This sounds incredibly wacky in the greatest sense. It sounds like Wes Anderson took drugs. And if you've ever seen a Wes Anderson movie, it already looks like he took drugs. But this sounds so much better than that. Oh my gosh.
So it sounds like an absolutely insane movie. And it
Yes.
sounds like it's low budget and all of this stuff. And like it sounds bonkers. And it is. And there's bad CGI and all of this stuff.
But I feel like that would make it better.
It does. The thing that's so impressive about this movie and what sets it apart from a lot of other like B movies and concept movies and joke movies and all of that stuff.
And fly movies.
And fly movies. Thank you. That actually is a pretty consistent joke in the comments of the YouTube video. It's great. But the way the characters are written and then the way the characters are portrayed is so top notch.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's over the top. Yes, it is, not cartoonish, but it's to an extreme in every single level.
Right, it's ridiculousness.
But it's such good quality.
Mm-hmm.
The introduction of every single character, something that Rajamouli does really well is character intros, and that's what you saw in the Netflix preview card.
Yeah.
It's character introductions. He does them so well. Normally, there's no words. Sometimes there are words. Normally, there's minimal words, especially from your character that you're introducing. And just based on the way they move, what actions they're taking, and how they're taking those actions, tell you everything you need to know about that character immediately.
Mm.
And the crazy thing is, they did that with a non-speaking housefly. You get just as much emotion from a mid-2000s animated housefly that you do from the main villain, who is a very good actor. It's incredible.
I didn't even think about that this entire time. Yeah, I know the feeling and characteristics and personality of this fly who does not speak for the entirety of the movie.
Yeah. And you understand what the fly is trying to communicate pretty much at all times. You get determination, you get sadness, you get anger, you get mocking, you get frustration, you get fear, you get so many complex emotions purely because of how the fly is portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
And you get that from the villain, and you get that from the main girl, and you get that from everybody in the movie. And that's the reason it's such a fascinating movie, because it is completely crazy, and it's such a stupid plot. And yet it's so good.
It sounds very good, because I often think that comedies tend to fall really flat for me, because I find that the ridiculousness of the thing that they're doing does not vibe well in the atmosphere that they're in, is sort of how I say it. I'm like, this isn't funny because, I don't know, the rest of this is just the rest of the world around me.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just this absolutely obtuse thing happening. But this is one of those situations where we've all been so annoyed by a bug that we are willing to do absolutely anything to want to just get rid of it. And so seeing that sort of thing is very funny, because it's a lot of physical comedy about this thing that we've all experienced so very deeply. And also it's sort of, I think everything we talked about earlier set it up really well, right, about the different perspectives, right? Because part of what makes this not as, because I feel like if this is an American movie, it falls completely flat.
Yeah.
Because it is a guy being reincarnated as a housefly, and in like American sensibilities and things, there isn't, like, some people believe in reincarnation, but it's sort of this like,
it's not a cultural norm.
Right. It's not a cultural norm. It's sort of a woo-woo thing. It's very mystical. But in in Indian culture and in, is it Hindu?
I
Hindu religion?
did not do enough research into the movie to know like where the religion stuff was coming
Yeah.
from. But there are at least one religion in India that believes in reincarnation.
Right.
It just depends on where you are.
Yeah, but that's one of those things where that idea or that concept is very normal, but the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you want to be reincarnated as something better in the next life, and the fact that you reincarnated as a fly has a lot of like, oh haha, you got turned into a fly as opposed to something more grand. But then you realize that the fly is it's the right fly
Yeah.
at the right place at the
Mm-hmm.
right time. So it goes from this thing that could be very potentially dishonoring or insulting, and then it elevates it. It does that thing that comedy does, where it turns expectations on its
Exactly.
head in a way that is very entertaining. So it's like, oh, you are the one fly in the one place at the one time to continue your fighting for the love of your life in
Mm-hmm.
this completely ridiculous scenario.
Yeah.
That sounds brilliant just from the concept and the cliff notes
Yeah.
essentially.
To contrast it with American movies even more, like you said, if it was in America, it would be a comedy and it would fall flat. And, like the bug would have been voiced by Eddie Murphy or something. And like it would have just been such a bad movie.
Yeah.
The other reason it works as an Indian movie is because a lot of Indian movies are not constrained by genre. It's what you call a masala film, where you just take whatever genre is appropriate at the time and you use it. And so sometimes, if you're not used to this, the movie can feel disjointed and all over the place and kind of mismatched. But if you know what's coming, you know how to, watch a movie like that,
Mm.
it hits all the feels. Because yes, there's a lot of physical stuff that is funny, and the idea of it is funny, and there's a lot of humor in there. There's also some scenes that you could describe as like light horror. Like it's suspenseful and terrifying and all of this stuff.
The main character dies.
Exactly.
Like getting his throat stepped on. That's pretty.
It's a
That's
pretty
pretty gnarly.
wild scene. Yeah. There's action and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also like just straight up drama. I cried during this movie, okay? On an airplane. I don't know how that happened, but it does not care about, oh, I'm gonna fit into this specific box
Mm-hmm.
like an American movie would. An American movie, you're just like, oh, this is a comedy, everything's gonna be played for laughs. Boom, we're done. This movie was telling a story, and it was using whatever medium it had to at the time to tell the story. And that's what makes it good.
Because the
It's not
story
an
is paramount.
Exactly. It's not an objectively good film, I don't think, in terms of a lot of things. But it is also a very, very, very good movie because it's telling a story and it's using whatever it has to at the time.
Yeah, I was listening to something the other day with Terry Crews in it, where he does not talk about, or he talks about how he does not look at reviews
Mm-hmm.
because he does a lot of what would be considered like lowbrow, low budget comedy,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, right? White Chicks, Longest Yard, Blended, a lot of these Adam Sandler movies, Idiocracy,
Yeah. The Old Spice commercials.
the Old Spice commercials, but he never looks at them because reviewers can feel very out of touch with what the people are saying and doing and feeling. Because in those movies, as much as I don't think that they're particularly very good, a lot of them, the story is still paramount. It's ridiculous. It's over the top. It's all of these other things. And Terry Crews is an excellent, what I call Broadway style actor.
Mm-hmm.
In the fact that on Broadway, everything has to be huge so that way you can convey the message properly. And he's very good at that. Like, we're going to go so over the top that there's no way that you're going to miss the story, but also it's so over the top that it's completely ridiculous in like a grand, funny way.
Yeah.
And this feels like in that vein where it's like, oh man, this is just so over the top and it's so dramatic. And those genre shifts are so jarring, but you understand exactly where you are. And you are understanding what you're being told, which is the mark of a good story.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's how you get from that to something like RRR. Because when you boil them down, a lot of the techniques are exactly the same. It's a lot more serious of a story. It's not quite as, outlandish, it still is over the top though, because the other character, there's two main characters. One of them, yeah, it's the guy outrunning a tiger and then wrestling it and winning,
Of course.
because obviously. The other one is the other main character literally fighting a crowd of over 1,000 people to get this one guy and arrest him. And the crazy thing is, you believe it happens. Because the way everything works, and the way the story views itself, and the way different genres and mediums and stuff are used, it makes sense and it feels right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also exactly how comedy works, because in a comedy, there's the suspension of disbelief. If the characters are in the world, then a lot of the humor comes from that jarringness of this person thinking it's normal and this person not thinking it's normal. A lot of comedy works really well when you have a straight man that you're playing off of. And it's kind of that similar juxtaposition in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's especially the story taking itself as not taking itself seriously, but believing in what it's saying.
It's very seriousness, and it's earnest in how
That's
earnest
the word.
it is.
That's the word. Yeah.
And that makes it really good. Because when you were saying, like, you need the straight man to play off of, I think of Elf,
Mm-hmm.
where Will Ferrell is just a dude in an elf costume running around in New York City, and everyone is just there and normal. And it's very ridiculous, but it is very earnest, right? Of like, what would happen? You have to be so willing to buy into the bit
Mm-hmm.
in comedy, because you can't half commit, because half committing leads to it falling flat or things not being very good. And in these Indian films that you're talking about, they are like super heavy, like they are just leaning into they're leaning into the bit so hard that it creates whiplash, because they lean in so hard one way and they just rip the wheel the other direction, and now you're going the other way, but you're still in the car, you're still along for the ride.
Yeah. Everybody go and watch the movie. I'm pretty sure it's still on Prime. It's fantastic. And then if you don't want to watch that, watch RRR, watch Bahubali, watch Three Idiots. I'm sure I'm going to talk about all of these movies at some point on the podcast, because they have done a lot to influence me, and they're just amazing.
I haven't watched a lot of Indian films. The two that come to mind the most, and how much Indian film they are, you can correct me on, but I always think of like Slumdog Millionaire.
Yep.
For an older movie.
Yep.
It's like that. I think that's a very good,
It's a very good movie.
Very good movie. And I've also watched Monkey Man not that long ago.
Yeah, that was one that was kind of made not for American audiences, but it was made to be a little more understandable.
It bridges that
it
sort
bridges
of
the
connection.
gap. Yeah, without sacrificing too much.
Yes. So if you're like, I don't know if I can fully lean into that, start out with Slumdog Millionaire and Monkey Man, and then you can lean into some of these other, and you lean into more of the Indian films. You'll get a better idea of style.
I mean, Slumdog Millionaire, there's only one dance sequence, and it's during the credits. So,
yeah.
I mean, you kind of get cheated, to be honest, because I'm looking for 3 or 4 at least most of the time.
Yeah, the complete Timmy showed me some things. A complete ridiculous thing where it's like, but it's great because it fits the story.
And again, it's another method of storytelling, because sometimes, and a lot of modern Indian movies do have this problem where there's just a dance scene because there's supposed to be a dance scene, and it does nothing, and it kind of falls flat. And there's a lot of bad things about Indian movies that I could talk about for a long time, but in a good movie, the dance sequence or just a music sequence serves the movie so well. There's this one movie, and we'll move on after this. But there's this one movie, Rob Nabana de Jodi, and there's this one scene in there, and I won't spoil anything because I probably want to talk about it later, and you should definitely watch it without it being spoiled. There's this one scene where it's essentially a music video. There's dance numbers and stuff like that, and it's the main character singing about how he's feeling and kind of him. It's essentially a soliloquy to the audience in music form while he's going through his day-to-day life, and he's trying to woo this girl. And the beautiful thing is that oftentimes with these dance breaks and stuff, you're never quite sure what's actually happening and what's just like imagery and then what's the person's imagination.
Right.
And in this one, it's so clear. And it's really cool. There's this one specific spot where he's singing, and he's singing his heart out, and there's the girl in front of him, and he's like behind her, and there's background dancers and everything like that. And it's all very clearly, okay, this is essentially a music video. And then you don't even realize it, Suddenly, all the dancers are gone. He's not singing. They're standing in front of each other, and it's like a real interaction. And you know that it's different, and you know this is real life. And then she does something to like essentially slightly reciprocate his flirtations and his love and this and all of that.
Yeah.
And then the dancers suddenly appear again, and he's on top of the world, and he's singing his heart out, and you know this is like happening in his head again.
Mm-hmm.
It is just such beautiful storytelling in something that's very foreign to a lot of people, and it just works.
It sounds amazing. Sounds like I need to watch it.
Yeah. Anyway, what's been inspiring you?
I think I'm gonna go with color.
All right, say more.
4th of July just happened, and we were watching some neighbors put on the world's longest fireworks display. I kid you not. We showed up after they had started. We stayed for an hour and a half, and they were still going when we left. No beginning in sight, no end in sight. I feel like it's like going to sleep in the middle of the ocean. Where you go to sleep, you're already in the middle of the ocean, and you wake up, you're still in the middle of the ocean. And I was taking time to really appreciate the way that the colors were lighting everything that was around us. So there were a couple of trees in between us and them, and a lot of times the fireworks would launch and then disappear behind some leaves and then reappear over the top and then burst into this amazing shower of colors, whether it was, red, white, and blue, America, or like the gold that sort of glitters after it's been shot off, or if it's something that's smaller, there were a few that were really bright. It would launch and the entire area would just light up red, cast these dark, long shadows as it would just rise and then just fade out. And then a green one would show up and do the same thing, but it provides a different sensation when it's red versus green versus blue. Or in the case of movies, when you were describing it, I was thinking of Monkey Man and how a lot of Indian films, lean into genre and things can be very exaggerated. The scene initially where he's fighting is just yellow. Like everything is yellow. Just this like dirty, grimy yellow color. And it just gives you the feel of it so well, of what it's like to be in the space at the time. I also think of old photographs taken in basketball arenas from a long time ago where everything is blue. And it's blue because there's like cigarette smoke in the air. That's why pictures don't look like that anymore, is because we learned that smoking kills people. And so the feeling that just color can convey, and just saying the word blue or red and how much that can give to an audience and make us feel is brilliant. And choosing to use like color at the right time, and it's made me think of other things that I would like to write, just that it's on just color and what it means. So for me, it's color.
How would you write color?
I would write color either subtly or explicitly, I guess. I would try not to throw in a color. I don't like to use color as set dressing because color has meaning. So I think if I were to say, if there was a man that was blue, he's in a blue suit sitting in a blue room in a blue house. What do you think of, what emotions that convey when I say there's a blue man in a blue suit in a blue house?
I mean, it's very uncanny. But it's also, for me, kind of calm. Not calm as in peaceful, but there's not a ton of extremes going on. I think if it was red, that would feel very glaring and kind of loud. But because it's blue, it's subdued, and it's not normal, it's not peaceful, but I think calm is the way I would describe it.
It's tranquil to sad, maybe.
Yeah, tranquil is a great word for that. Yeah.
Yeah, so like when I think of that, I think of someone who's sad. When you think of that, you think of someone who's like, again, just tranquil, undisturbed.
Yeah.
By a lot of those things, right? And that's just that's a one sentence, or I guess a 3 sentence structure,
Yeah.
depending on whether I want to use semicolons when I speak. That would be what. That's another. I'll talk about that another time.
Wait, well, to the punctuation episode, all we talked about is punctuation. I have opinions as well.
Punctuation. So yeah, color can convey a lot of meaning, right? And you can write about color. Again, that 3 sentence. There's a blue man wearing a blue suit in a blue house. So much emotion is conjured from just that. And you even compared it. You juxtaposed it to something that is very red. And I really appreciate lots of very saturated colors and very like bright colors, because I think it's better conveyance. And I'm sure I'm thinking about a clip that you showed me from one of the Bollywood movies where the villain is walking out and he's doing an absolutely ridiculous dance. It's phenomenal. And he is in a, I think it's an all black suit with black sunglasses.
I'm trying to remember which movie this is.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I'm mimicking the dance.
I can't bring the movie to mind, but I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about.
But he was like, "This is the villain," and the villain walks out in all black suit, black sunglasses in the middle of a bright sunny day, and I was like, "Well, yeah, he's the villain. Look at him. Look at the way that he's dressed. Like, look at all the colors are black. This guy is bad news." And I was just inspired by that, just seeing all of the colors. And again, like 4th of July, everything is red, white, and blue, right? Like, it is explicitly a very, very colorful holiday, right? Because it makes you think of the colors of the American flag and whatever feeling that elicits. I know for some people that it's good feelings, for some people it's bad feelings. For a lot of us, there's very mixed feelings, particularly in this time. So I will go something broad and beautiful with just color. Yeah. Shout out the song Colors by Black Pumas.
Ooh. Yeah, definitely go listen to Black Pumas. They're amazing.
Yes.
Well, is it? It's not jazz. Would you say that's kind of like soul funk, or?
It's very soul funk. It's jazz adjacent. It's sort of in that. It's sort of in that realm. Just the very opening gives you that. Gives you that feeling.
Yeah, that's a good song.
So, is there anything with writing that you'd like to talk about this week?
At the risk of making this episode way too long, a little short thing.
Sure.
So I was working, I think, on Thursday. Maybe it was Friday morning. I was trying to write the next chapter of the book, and like I said, it's kind of turning into a series of vignettes.
Yep.
This next one, I have been dreading writing this chapter, and my dread fears have been realized, because it's essentially shady people at a conference mixer, and I have no clue how to write this thing. So I've written a lot of it. I know what I have to convey through it, but I tend to try and, make things happen through dialogue as opposed to telling the reader what's happening.
Yep.
And so I wrote a lot. It was like three pages or something, which is a lot for me in one sitting. And I just didn't like any of it. Like, I feel like it's bland. I feel like it's uninteresting. There's no momentum. It is totally bringing down the vibe of the book, which I don't want to be dry, sad, boring. It's supposed to be snappy, humorous, and interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was writing it, and I was just like, I hate this. And I kept writing, and I was hoping it would get better, and it didn't. And I haven't done anything since then. So
I don't
know what the hang-up is. That's the problem. I think I just have to finish the chapter and then read through it with fresh eyes and see what I like and what I don't like, and then probably rewrite it, and then do that again and rewrite it.
Yeah.
And it's just a different experience from the rest of the book, because the rest of the book I've known exactly what I wanted, and I've known how to write it because it's something I've written before. This is not something I've tried to communicate before, and it's very difficult. And I don't know how it's going to turn out. I hope it turns out well. But I guess this is more of a just, hey, this is part of the journey sometimes. Sometimes it's just kind of frustrating and it sucks.
Sometimes you write things that you don't like, and sometimes you write things that you really, really like, and sometimes you wind up liking things that you didn't originally like. And sometimes maybe the juxtaposition is good, where it's like,
could be.
Oh, the good guys are fun and vibrant and bright, and then you get to these nefarious people, and you're like, boo. Why are you boring? Boo.
Yeah.
That could be interesting if that's what you're going for, but sometimes it just takes a lot of trial and error, mostly error.
Yeah. There's a shocking amount of creative endeavors that are just elbow grease.
Yeah.
Like it's not a flash in the pan, it's not a moment of inspiration. It is just putting in the work over and over and over again until you get something that is functional. And you may never like it, and it just does what it needs to do, and you move on. And that's part of it. And then you'll get that flash in the pan inspiration for some other part, and it's the best thing you've ever written. And people might like both equally. You never know.
Yep, that's a great example of this piece.
Yeah.
For me, I finally got back to writing something.
Yes.
Like actually concrete that is not just a submission. I did do more submissions, but I rewrote the intro for a character for a book I was describing the other day, where I'm telling the book from essentially 6 different characters. There's one omnipotent narrator who's reading through everything. It's like he's telling you the story, basically. But the perspective shifts from one character to another, to another, to another. It's sort of the cameraman is following one character for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And the beginning of each one does the opening of each section, sort of tells you how they got here in brief. And it sort of gives a intro of their character and other things like that. And it just felt so good to sort of re-dig into this character. Because I did something that you're going through right now, where I wrote his opening, and I knew it wasn't very good. And I knew I was going to come back to it later. But I got it down on the page, and was like, this isn't very good, but let me just think about it and come back to it later. And I wrote a large chunk of the rest of his section. And I was like, now I know what this character is and feels and where I'm going. And so I went through and added a whole nother chunk of character detail and feeling and emotion that I previously wasn't able to, because I hadn't quite fully wrapped around to understanding who this character was.
Yeah.
So good progress to be made. Not a lot, 500 or 600 words, but it was very impactful and meaningful, and there was more restructuring to be done.
Well, that's very encouraging too, because we've talked about this before, but oftentimes I'll have trouble giving myself permission to move on from something bad and revisit it later. And knowing that can be effective, from essentially personal experience from you. Hopefully that gives me permission to actually leave this bad chapter behind and write the rest of the book, and then come back to it and see what I can do to it.
Yep. So it'll be beneficial in the long run.
Yeah. And I'm very excited about what Caleb's writing. I don't know when he's going to talk about it, but I'm pumped.
Hopefully soon, as I'm finding myself with a little more time to write now, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I think that puts a good bow on this probably very long episode.
Yeah, this is going to be hour plus for sure.
But it's the 10th episode.
Exactly. It's special.
Yeah, we can have it be special. And I'm going to change the outro a little bit, because we keep talking about a lot of creative works that are not just writing. And I want the audience, and I want everyone who's listening to be inspired to create. Whether that is writing, or stop motion Lego videos, or pottery, or movies, or music, or whatever it is. I want people to create. So with that, keep creating, keep listening, keep being inspired.